What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more of the Motors from their Airport Greatest Hits compilation. Thank you again to Phil. And the next track of the playlist is Metropolis, which is historically a Greek term meaning mother city, the city that is the progenitor of subsequent cities or polis that build up around it, and thus it is the sort of anchor city in a given region. It still sometimes is used in that way, but I think more often in modern times and in English, it is used to mean a very big city, a particularly expansive or largely populated city. So I suppose I would lean more toward the second definition, which again is functionally very similar to the original definition. But yeah, so it's a single word title. I don't know what will be said about a metropolis, but it's the kind of thing that is sometimes seen as indicative of what humans do, the way we organize spatially, demographically, geographically. So I suppose any number of those things could be on offer, or it could literally just be a narrative that happens to take place within a metropolis. I'll see what I can catch on first listen. This is the Motors, and the track is Metropolis. Oh. Wicked.
On a time to reimagine. Many years ago when time was young, what kind of magic did you see there? Only heaven knows. Not so long ago there was a small town. Suddenly a stone began to grow, and if you look up in the sky, it's high rise. The trees began to disappear, the mountains rose above. And let me tell you something, dear, there's escalators everywhere. Metropolis, Metropolis, you just had to be. Metropolis, Metropolis, a page in history. Metropolis, oh what a cast, oh what a buzz.
crazy tune. The most edgy and dissonant of the ones I've heard so far. And I was very struck by it. Like, it wasn't as, let's say, immediately catchy or accessible as the other tunes. And not to say that, they didn't have some energy and even guitar bite to them, but this one definitely had a, like, more bristly sort of quality and more dissonant melodic chronology. I will say, like, at first I was like, oh, like, I guess it kind of reminds me of some of the early, like, experimental Simple Minds stuff. And then I was thinking, like, oh, like, when the chorus started, it was like, oh, it's almost like a dark-themed ABBA kind of chorus. And then, like, over the course of it, I was like, I don't know, is it maybe, like, Roxy music at their most dissonant? I was trying to, like, make an association or classification, and it sort of defied that. It was like all of those things but none of those things at the same time. So yeah, like, definitely, some keys in there, like, not only chords that I think are like electronic keyboard, but they're sounding like, true piano, or at least like a keyboard kit that is done in the style of a true piano that was sort of like dancing and frantic. And then, like, in the latter stages, there were those, like, I think brass flares, which were almost like, being stabbed with, like, a brass flourish. And I think there was maybe even more than just the brass doing that, but it was, like, irregular, too. It wasn't like every other, but it wasn't every one, like, bar either. It was, like, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. Like, it seemed to be jumping around rhythmically. So yeah, a crazy tune. Lyrically, I don't want to make of it either. It's like, Metropolis, you had to be a page in history, but now, like, what have you done? Or I don't know if that was the exact phrasing. But yeah, that, like, are we personifying the city as the you, and that's who's being addressed? Or is it like, this is what people do in a metropolis? I think the city's being personified, because I think it's the idea of the city in its place in history, but then, like, maybe it grew too much, or became super saturated to the point where it wasn't serving the function in people's lives that it was supposed to be. But I don't really know what's happening lyrically. And as I said, it was like the intense, a bit wild, and edgily dissonant sonics really had my ear for most of the tunes. So yeah, a wild one. I'm curious to hear what people think about it. I'm curious if there's any insight about the lyrics, but yeah, definitely, like, more off the beaten path than anything I've heard them do so far. And again, like, knowing that, like, they're kind of seen as, number one, they kind of were in a transitional time, like late 70s to very early 80s. That's certainly a transitional time, not just in one genre, but I would say in music more generally, as I've come to understand it. And even within rock music, it seems like they're maybe doing some different things on, different lanes of the larger rock highway, if you will. And this one definitely had a different flavor than the first three. So yeah, enjoyable, but a bit crazy. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.